Now this particular quasi-contract, it says it is on the principle of equity. The duty of the party and not the promise of any party is basis on such contract. Here, the obligation is been imposed by law because it is not a contract. A wagering agreement is nothing but is a promise to give. Hi and a warm welcome to you all dear students. I, George William, Commerce Faculty, Department of Commerce, Vidhyaashram First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence, MYSURU. Dear students, today we shall take up session 2 of Unit 3, that is of contingent contract. So in this particular session of session 2, in today's class, I'll be discussing with you regarding the quasi-contract as well as about wagering contract and the differentiation between the quasi-contract and the wagering contract or the agreements. Now in the last session, in session 1, I had explained to you about the meaning of contingent contract and what are the definition of a contingent contract, the rules for contingent contract and various other elements, that is essential elements of a contingent contract. In today's session, we shall, as I told you, we shall see the concept of the meaning of quasi-contract. What is a quasi-contract? See, actually speaking, quasi-contract is not at all a contract. It is not at all a contract because it says it has been enforced by law. It has been, according to the law, this particular contract has come into existence. Okay. So, it is not a contract, it is not a contract at all. Quasi-contract is not a contract at all because some or other elements may be missing, it may be absent, right? So, it says some of the elements are for the formation of this particular contract, it is missing here. So, I can give an example where X is a businessman and he is keeping some of his goods in B's house. Now, there is no agreement or a contract between A and B, or there is no any kind of agreements or the any kinds of what do you say, the contracts is not been done on part of A and B. Now, in case if B has used the goods or the commodities of Mr. A who has kept his goods in B's house, and if he utilizes it and uses it, then at a later stage, B is bound to pay the expenses for the amount which he has utilized the goods of Mr. A. So that is how it has been taken into consideration because the court will tell him that he needs to pay him, he is bound to pay the amount for the goods which he has utilized or used. Now it is an obligation which has been imposed by law. So this particular contract called as quasi-contract, as I told you, it is an obligation on part of the law where it is imposed, right, on a person for the benefit of other even in the absence of a contract. So in the event, that is though there is no contract, but still the other person has used or he has taken the benefit of another person, and that is the reason it says it is obligation on part of that particular person who has taken the advantage or the benefit of the other party, and thereby he is bound to pay for the expenses for the goods or whatever the things he has or the benefits he has achieved. Now this particular quasi-contract, it says it is on the principle of equity, means it says which no person shall be allowed to unjustly enrich himself at the expense of another. So it is the principle of equity. Principle of equity says that no person will be allowed, that is no person will be allowed to unjustly, without justice or without just, or that's what it says, unjustly he cannot enrich himself, means he cannot get the benefit at the expense of another. Now such obligations are called as quasi-contracts, or also we call it as implied contracts, because the outcome of such obligation resembles in creating by a contract. Now when this particular obligation, because of the obligation, we call this as a quasi-contract or we call it as the implied contracts, because whatever the outcome of it, that is the outcome of such kind of obligation will be resembling, that is it will see that it has been created by a contract. So it has been totally created by it is called as a contract because they say that because of the obligations and because of unjustly the other party has taken the benefit of another person or the party. So there the law will say that there is a contract between these both. What are the features of a quasi-contract? It says the duty of the party and not the promise of any party is basis on such contract. So here the feature says the duty of a party, it is a duty on part of the party and not the promise of any party. So it is a duty of the person who has unjustly received the benefit of the another person, and it is not the promise which has been made by or any of the parties, right, as a contract. Now it is imposed by law and does not arise from any agreement. This quasi contract, it is imposed by law. So according to law, this person is bound to pay for the expenses which is to be met or which is to be given to the other party, because he has unjustly utilized the benefit or received the benefit from the other party. So that is why it says it has been imposed by law and does not arise from any kind of agreement. So there is no agreement or no contract between any of the parties under this quasi contract. So it is only imposed by law. Then the right under this is available against a specific person. So the rights is available, that is against a specific person or persons and not against the world. So here, this whatever the rights are there, that particular rights is available only against whom? Specific person, or it may be specific persons, and not against the world. That is not on everyone. So a suit for his breach may be filed in the same way as in the case of complete contract. So you can file the case, the other party can go to the court of law and he can file a case on particular person who has enriched himself or who has enriched himself unjustly taking the benefit of the another person. So and he can file a complaint, and that particular contract will be a complete contract. And the right under this quasi contract, it says always a right to money and generally, though not always, to liquidate sum of money. So here the right under it says always a right to money, means that means the person has a right to get the money from the other person, because that other person has received the benefit or has taken the advantage or the benefit unjustly. That is why the person has a right to get the money, and though not always, even it is not always been taken into consideration, but still liquidated to the sum of money. Now what are the distinction or the differences between quasi contracts and other contracts? Now if you see, it says essential for the formation of a valid contract. See, the essential for the formation of valid contract, it says the essential for formation of valid contract are absent here. So if you want to make a contract, there should be some essentials, elements for a contract to be made. There may be two persons, there should be an agreement, right? There should be consideration like this. But here there is no such elements in the formation of the valid contract, which is absent in quasi contract. What about others? The essential for the formation of valid contract are present. So but if you take the other contracts apart from quasi contract, there you can find all the elements are present in that particular contract. Secondly, obligation. Obligation is imposed by law. Here the obligation is been imposed by law because it is not a contract, that is under quasi contract. But whereas here under other contract it says it created by the consent of the parties. Obligation is been done, or it has been created under the consent of the parties. That is both the parties are coming together, agreeing together on the same subject matter as well as on the same sense. Now coming to the differences between contingent contract and a wagering contract. What is the difference between contingent contract and wagering contract? See, a wagering agreement is a promise to give money or money's worth with reference to an uncertain event happening or not happening. So wagering agreement is what? It is an agreement between two parties or the two persons where they say that they are promising to give the money or money's worth, that is in case related to an uncertain event which may take place or which may not take place. That means this is something like a gambling, or it may like a bet for a cricket match. So there one person A says now India is going to win, and the other party B says no, Australia is going to win. So in this case there is a bet where they say that if India wins, B is going to pay him rupees 500, and in case if Australia wins, the other person, that is A, will pay 1000 rupees. So this is something a bet, we call it as a bet. So a wagering agreement. So this is called as a wagering agreement. A wagering agreement is nothing but is a promise to give, that is the money or money's worth, on the happening of some uncertain event which may happen or which may not happen. Now, whereas contingent contract is a contract to do or not to do something. But on the other side, if you see, a contingent contract is what? It is a contract where it says is a contract to do or not to do something. So, to do or to abstain from doing something with reference to what? The collateral event which is happening or not happening. So, it is collateral to the happening of that particular event, or it may not be happening. Now, a wagering contract says the uncertain event is the core factor. So, under wagering contract, if you see, the contract is uncertain. It is not certain. It is not going to happen. So, it is uncertain event, and that is the main important factor. But whereas a contingent contract, the event is collateral. But in contingent contract, it says that particular event is collateral where it can happen. A wagering contract consists of reciprocal promises. So, if you see wagering contract or agreement, it is having lot of reciprocal, what do you say, the promises been made by both the parties or each of the parties. But whereas contingent contract says it may not contain this kind of reciprocal promises. A wagering agreement is essentially a contingent in nature. So, a wagering agreement is essentially, it is very much important that it is essentially a contingent in nature, but whereas if you see, a contingent contract may not be a wagering agreement. Now, a wagering contract is a game where losing and gaining alone matters. So, in wagering contract or agreement, it says it is like a game. I told you, a cricket match or a bet. So, it is a game where it says losing and winning or gaining is alone the matter there. So, there is nothing as such that I have to do this or you have to do this. There is no obligation. It is say that it is a game, and there who is going to win and who is going to lose. That is the main concept, and that is the main important subject matter. But whereas it is not so in contingent contract. In contingent contract, it is a contract where for you are going to do, that is you are going to do an agreement or a contract on the happening of some event or on the non-happening of some event. That is for doing or not to do something or abstain from doing something. A wagering agreement is void, whereas a contingent contract is a valid one. So, this wagering agreement, it is a void agreement because there is no as such agreement where it is void because it is not enforced by law. Because it has not been enforceable by law, this wagering agreement is a void agreement, but whereas a contingent contract, it is a valid contract because it is enforceable by law. And a wagering agreement, it says the contracting parties, they have no interest in subject matter. So, in the subject matter, they don't have interest. Whether they are, for example, the betting takes place in cricket match. So, A and B are there. So, they say that whether this particular country is going to win or this particular country is going to lose. So, their main is to see that they get the amount. That's it. So, winning and losing is not a part of that particular subject matter. So, here they are not having any interest in the subject matter, but whereas it says it is not so in contingent contract, but in contingent contract it is not so. It should be that in contingent contract that they should be to doing something, to do something or to abstain from doing something in that is for the consideration, that is to get something in return. So, even in the absence of a contract, it says this quasi contract, certain social relationships give rise to certain specific obligations that is to be performed by certain persons. Now, these are known as the quasi contracts because they create same obligation as in case of regular contract. So, here even in the absence of a contract, even though there is no contract, when there is absence in the contract, that is in case of quasi contract, but there will be some certain social relationships that will come into existence, and due to that it gives rise to what? Some certain specific obligations. So, some certain specific obligation is has to be done on part of this relationships, and which has to be performed by some of the persons or some of the parties. Now, that is why we call it as the quasi contract. And as they create some obligation, that is in case of regular contract. So as in case of regular contract, so here also it says some of the persons, they need to do on their part that some obligation has to be created. So these quasi contracts are based on the principles of equity, justice and good conscience. So these quasi contracts are totally based on the principles of equity, that is where the other person, no person will be allowed for unjustly taking the benefit or enriching himself with the benefit of another person, right? And also to give the justice to other person who has lost the goods or who has under loss, as well as for the good conscience. Now students, let us see what are the silent features of a quasi contracts. See, it says in the first place, such as right is always a right to money, and generally, though not always, to liquid sum of money. So first and foremost, here the main silent features of a quasi contract here, the parties are not, they are not having any intention, or they don't have any kind of intention towards the subject matter, whether who is going to win or lose. That is not the subject matter here. Their main intention is whether they are going to get the amount or not. That's it. Secondly, it does not rise from any agreement of the parties concerned, but it is imposed by law. So here there is no as such. So in the as I told you here, in second aspect of the silent features of quasi contract, it says it does not arise from any agreement. It does not arise from any agreement, because there is no agreement, no contract. So naturally it will not arise due to any agreement or contract, and it may be imposed by law, because the other person has enriched himself on the for the benefit which he has received or benefited from another person. So it is the duty or the obligation on the part of that person who has enriched himself with the advantage or with the benefit to repay him back, or to pay the amount for the goods which he has used it. Thirdly, it is a right which is available not against all the world. So this is the right upon some person, and it is not for all the world, that is not against all the world, but against a particular person or persons only. So this is the right, it is only on part of a particular person the right is there, but not to everyone. So that in this respect it resembles a contractual rights. So because of this, there comes into existence a contract, that is by law, and thereby we can see it becomes a contractual right on part of the person who has lost the goods. Now types of quasi contract. Under types of quasi contracts, it says there are 5 circumstances under which we can identify by act it is a quasi contract. So how you can identify that particular is a contract is a quasi contract or not? So it says first one is claim for necessary supply to the person incapable of contracting. So it says any person supplying necessaries of life to the persons, to other persons, that is who are incapable of contracting, that is who is incapable of entering into a contract, right, is entitled to claim the price from the other person's property. Now for example, in this case you can say minor. Minor is a person where he gets the necessary supplies from the other person. Now when he gets the necessary supply from the other person, when he is not able to pay the payment, then the other persons who have supplied this particular necessaries, so they can they can claim the necessaries which they have supplied, and that is through their guardians or to the parents of the minor. Secondly, it says the money is to be paid to such persons for purchase of necessaries, reimbursement can be claimed. So similarly, where you can see that when the minor is not capable of entering into a contract and is not able to repay the amount, in such cases the guardians or the parents of that particular person, that is the minor who has taken the necessaries of life, right, from the other party, so there the money should be paid, or they can pay the money to such persons from whom they have purchased the necessaries, as well as reimbursement also can be claimed from the person who has supplied the necessaries. Then right to recover money paid for another person. So here under this case also it says the person who has paid a sum of money which it says which another is obliged to pay. Now for example, if I have taken the money from one person, so I have paid Like I have paid some money to another person, to my friend, right? And that person is an obligation to pay me back. It is entitled to be reimbursed by the other person provided the payment has been made by him to protect his own interest. So in this case, it says that particular person who has given the amount to another person, he has every right to recover the amount which is been paid for another person. Now, if I have paid some amount to another person because my friend has taken a loan from one more person, so here A, B and C comes into existence. So A is the person, one who is paying to C because B has taken a loan from C, and now from C, A can claim the amount. Third is obligation of persons enjoying benefits of non-gratuitous. It means where a person lawfully does anything for another person. So if any person is doing any act or conduct is being done by any of the person for another person, or delivers anything to him not intending to be gratuitously, such other person enjoys the benefits thereof and later is bound to pay compensation to the former in respect or to restore the thing which is done or delivered. So under this case, it says it is the obligation of the person, right? Obligation of a person who is enjoying the benefits of non-gratuitous. So it says if a person lawfully has done something, he has some act or some conduct has been done for another person. So if I am doing something lawfully to my friend, so if I am doing something to my friend, that is lawfully, if I am doing some obligation or conducting some work for my friend, or delivers anything to him, or if I deliver some goods or commodities to him which is not intending to be gratuitous, that means it is not because of that is gratitude I am doing it, but the other such person, that is the other person who is enjoying it, that is my friend who is enjoying whatever I give him or whatever the work I do for him, right? The benefit, the later is bound to pay the compensation. That means the other person has to pay the compensation to me because I have the every respect, that is to see that whatever the goods is being delivered, for that I need to get back my amount or the work which I have done for him. Then responsibility of finder of goods. Under this, the person who finds goods belonging to another. So if a person who finds a goods belonging to other, so A is a person, he finds one of the goods, okay, so he finds the goods of B and he says and takes them to his custody. So this person A, he will take this particular under his custody, that is the goods, in subject the same responsibility as he was a bailee. So this person will take the responsibility of B's things which was found, and he will have in his custody because the subject matter here is it is responsible as because he was a bailee for B. Now the next one is liability for the amount paid or thing delivered by mistake or by coercion. So the next type of quasi contract says a person to whom money has been paid. Now A is a person, he has paid money to whom B, right? Or anything delivered by mistake. So he has paid cash, or example, or he has delivered goods. So he has delivered goods to be mistakenly, by mistake, right? So or under coercion must repay or return it. Now B, what he has to do? He has to repay the amount for the goods which he has received from A, or he should return back the goods because it is not his goods. By mistake, he has delivered to him. So every kind of payment of money, which is delivery of goods of every type is a mistake, is recoverable. So any such kind of the money which is being paid to the other person, that is from A to B, or the goods which is being delivered from A to B, now it is by mistake, it is totally by mistake. So that should be recoverable from B to A. So A has to recover it from B. So the payment of municipal tax made under mistaken belief or because of misunderstanding of the terms of lease can be recovered from the municipal authorities. So this is a case where it says the payment of tax was paid to municipal corporation, right? That is mistakenly on belief that, or a belief, or it is by mistake it is been paid, because there was some misunderstanding in the terms of lease, and due to that now that particular amount can be recovered from whom? From the municipal authorities. So the municipal authorities have to repay the amount to the person one who has taken the lease. So students, these are the various topics of this today's session. So hope you understood. So I have explained to you about the quasi-contract, the essential features of the quasi-contract, then what are the important factors which are related to the quasi-contracts, the difference between wagering agreement and what do you call the quasi-contract, and the quasi-contract with other contracts. So all these I have explained to you. Hope you understood this particular concepts. So it can be asked for 5 marks. Write a note on quasi-contract. So you can just explain this in a short form. Okay. So they can ask you also the differences between the quasi-contract or a wagering agreement, something like that. It can be asked. So concentrate on the studies and it will be more helpful for your examination. So see you in the next class, students. Until then, take care. Have a nice day. Thank you, students.